Today we have with us 103 FM. We have Newsday. Yeah. We have Express. Right. We have CNC3. Mm-hmm. We have Guardian. Right. And that Newsday. That's it for now.
TV6 as well.
And TV6 as well, yes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this very hastily arranged virtual news conference being streamed from the Ministry of Finance, our media room. The purpose of this press conference was to deal with an issue which I first saw in yesterday's newspapers, and I see it now in the business section of The Guardian today, and I thought it's appropriate that I come and deal with the issues. There's a clear misunderstanding of the facts, the true facts. So if I look at the page 15 of The Guardian today, a local businessman is unhappy about what he believes is the process for the payment of value-added tax bonds. Now, we had promised in the budget to pay a substantial amount of value-added tax refunds by way of bonds, and that these bonds would be paid out in 2020. We amended that slightly, well, not significantly actually, I shouldn't say slightly, earlier this year, where we paid out all VAT refunds up to $500,000 owed per VAT period in cash. We took the opportunity at the same time to also pay out all individual income tax refunds, regardless of the amount. So we had initially intended to pay out individual income tax refunds that were $20,000 or less. And then we took the decision that regardless of the amount owed to individuals in terms of tax refunds, that we would pay all. So we have done that. And those are all issued through the post by TT Post. We also took the opportunity to pay out in order to provide relief during this COVID-19 period. In order to provide relief, we took the opportunity to pay out all VAT refunds up to $250,000, and then we switched and upgraded that to all VAT refunds owed up to $500,000 or less in cash. So we paid out all VAT refunds from $0 to $500,000, and all VAT refunds $250,000, which is subsumed within the $500,000. The issuance of the VAT bonds took us a little while because we had to reconfigure the IT system at the Board of Inland Revenue. But I'm very happy to say that we started the process of paying out VAT bonds last week. This article here, where this local businessman is complaining about the VAT bonds, unfortunately comes from an erroneous circular not sent out by the Ministry of Finance or by the Inland Revenue Division, but an erroneous circular sent out by a local accounting firm, who unfortunately, in copying a release sent out by the Ministry of Finance last month in April, they left out a very, very important sentence. This is very regrettable and very unfortunate, and I would urge all accounting firms, if they are reporting to their customers, which you understand this is what happened here, that this accounting firm sent out a circular to its clients on Friday, and regrettably in that circular left out the most important line in the Ministry of Finance publication. And that line was, any liabilities that remain outstanding would be deducted from the amount due before bonds are issued. By leaving that out, any person who received that circular from that local accounting firm could be led to believe that unless and until you pay all your taxes, you would not get any VAT refunds. That is completely incorrect. And again, I want to repeat, the line that was left out of the Ministry of Finance publication was any liabilities that remain outstanding at this time would be deducted from the amount due before bonds are issued. What this means is that if you're owed $5 million in tax refunds, VAT refunds, and the computer is showing that you have a previous liability of $5,000 or $10,000, that amount, whether it is 5,000 or 100,000, whatever it is, will be deducted from the VAT bonds before the amount is calculated that you are entitled to. What it does not mean, and this is a very unfortunate, obviously unintended consequence of that erroneous and incomplete circular that was sent out by that local accounting firm. What it does not mean is that until and unless you pay all your tax liabilities, you would not get a cent. Because unfortunately, that is the interpretation that was put on the circular. And I can see how somebody who doesn't know, reading that circular from a private accounting firm, not being aware of the complete release from the Ministry of Finance, could jump to the conclusion that whether they owe $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 in taxes, and they're entitled to VAT refunds of $5 million, that the entire $5 million will be withheld until the $5,000 is paid. That is not so, and I want to correct that mistake. And I would urge again all local accounting firms, if you're going to quote the Ministry of Finance, please quote us verbatim. Don't cut and paste, take out pieces, because it leads to misunderstandings. And this is a very sensitive issue. This whole question of money, financial relief being provided by the government at this time in this very difficult period is very, very sensitive. And people are hypersensitive about it. They're not happy, they're upset, and therefore when they get a circular from a private firm who they trust saying that, look, you have to pay all your taxes before you get anything, I could understand the anxiety. So I've come here to clear this up. I'm also very, very happy to say that I was sent an update by the Inland Revenue Division just a few minutes ago. And I'm very pleased to say, even though the process only started last week, that the Inland Revenue Division has already processed $449,355,000 in VAT refunds by way of bonds. And what the Inland Revenue is doing, they process the bond, they print the bond, it's a paper bond, and they contact the individual and they're invited to come and receive the bond. So almost $450 million in VAT bonds have already been processed and printed for delivery to various corporate entities as of this morning. That's very excellent work by the Board of Inland Revenue. The speed at which they're going, if I could just give you, if I could look and see what they're telling me here. On the 25th, what date is today? That's about today's the 26th. Great. On the 26th of May, today, the VAT Office, or the Inland Revenue Division, because the VAT Office was subsumed into the Inland Revenue Division, the Inland Revenue Division has processed, printed bonds totaling $280 million. I think that's excellent work on the part of the Inland Revenue Division to be able to process and print $280 million in bonds in one day, which is what they have done today, which brought the total up to $449,355. So I just want to make it crystal clear that nobody's VAT bonds are being withheld because they may owe small amounts of tax. That's a misunderstanding that was put in the system inadvertently by a private accounting firm. I want to clear that up. People are getting the VAT bonds, and if there's a liability in its system, it's just deducted from the bond, and then they can query that and resolve that issue as well in due course. The bonds are fully encashable, fully tradable at the commercial banks, and the rate, 3.3% over a 3-year period. The banks have assured us at Finance that they would cash in these bonds at 100 cents on the dollar. So people, if they need cash, they can cash in these bonds right away with the commercial banks and get their full amount. So this is the purpose of this press conference, to clear up that misunderstanding that found its way into the newspapers. I'll have to say, can't say it's nobody's fault, because the accounting firm should have published our release verbatim and left in that line, but it wasn't deliberate. I'm satisfied of that. And I hope this has now cleared it up, and I'm available now to answer any questions that may be asked of us.
At this time, we open the floor for questions, as Minister stated. Please remember to use your raise hand tool. The floor is open for any questions. Minister, we have Clint Chantak from
Newsday.
Yes. Clint, are you there?
Are you all hearing me now?
Yes, we're
we
hearing
are.
you. Not seeing you, but we're hearing
Okay.
you.
Okay. Morning, Minister.
Good morning.
I just wanted to know, yes, I just wanted to find out, there were concerns raised previously about whether these bonds would reach or help out small and medium-term businesses within this period. Could you say anything with respect to the payments which have gone out? How many of these might have gone out to small and medium-term businesses who some people believe that they might be the worst affected in terms of the current measures regarding COVID-19?
Sure. When we made the decision to issue some of the VAT refunds in cash, we focused on the smaller refunds. Firstly, up to $250,000 and below, and then $500,000 and below. And we did that deliberately, because that's the vast majority of the VAT refunds that are owed. Thousands of VAT refunds are owed and have been paid in that category up to 500,000. First 250,000, then 500, and those are all the small businesses. So that our decision at the beginning to pay out certain categories of VAT refunds in cash was deliberately designed to assist small businesses to get them cash. And these small businesses have received, there may be one or two who there may be some issue with postal delivery or something like that. I've had people contact me and give me a list of bonds that they were supposed to get. And when I checked with the authorities, I discovered that the bonds had in fact been sent out. And I have had to tell companies, check with your security, check your mailbox, that sort of thing. Something as simple as that, believe it or not. And I have had responses saying, yes, they found them. By and large, one person had a total of about $500,000 in bonds in little pieces, 20,000, 50,000, etc. About 9 or 10 refunds. And when I told them to go back and check, they found them. Somebody had collected them and put them on a desk during the lockdown period because the business is not fully open, operational, and they found the bonds, with the exception of one or two for a couple of $1,000. So that our first release of VAT refunds in cash was aimed specifically at helping small businesses. The bonds now are for amounts up to $1 million, $5 million, that sort of thing.
Okay, Minister, we now have Sarah Chandu from 103 FM.
Sure.
Sarah, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes, proceed.
Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes. Good afternoon, Minister. You just said that the bonds are supposed to help small businesses, especially in these difficult times. However, many are still reporting extreme financial distress as a result of stay-at-home measures. Would any other measures be considered to lend assistance to them? I know some, especially businesses in malls and so on, a lot have actually either indicated their intention to close down or say that may actually be a possibility in the near future.
Okay, let me just clear up something that you said. The cash refunds of VAT that we gave were for amounts up to $500,000, which would be the vast majority of small businesses. So we're not issuing bonds to small businesses unless they are owed VAT of $5 million or $10 million or something like that. And you would hardly find a small business being owed that amount. So the cash refunds that went out March, April, and so on were for the small businesses. With respect to other assistance for small businesses, we're certainly looking at that. We're finalizing the loan program this week, where the First Citizens Bank will be issuing soft loans to small businesses, small and medium enterprises, over a 4-year period with a 2-year moratorium on payments, and the government will be covering all of the interest, so that the small business will be able to access these loans, which are really to help them out with their operational expenses during this very difficult period. without having to make a single payment for the first 2 years. So that the government will pay the interest throughout the 4-year period. The business will not have to make any payments on principal during the first 2 years, and they start to pay in year 3 and will complete in year 4. So that is a program that we have already designed and will be approved this week for immediate implementation. We're hoping the other banks will fall in because we're starting with FCB, it's one of the government-owned banks. We're hoping that the other banks will fall in quickly so that persons will be able to go to their particular bank to get these soft loans. Now, this is the softest loan that you can get, no interest, 0 interest. Government is covering all the interest, and you make no payments for 2 years, so that it gives you time to reorganize your business and remobilize and redevelop your business and so on. We are also looking at other forms of assistance that we can give to SMEs, and those decisions will be made. This is a very dynamic situation. We make decisions regularly based on changed circumstances, so that we're looking again to see what other assistance we could give small businesses. I can tell you that we've also decided to give a loan facility to credit unions, specifically for small businesses. We started off by giving credit unions a facility, and all the agreements have been signed with all the credit unions in this very room that I'm in right now. I actually came on Friday last week and completed the execution of the agreements with individual credit unions, and the Friday before we had done the vast majority of them. I did some tidying up on Friday gone, where credit unions can now lend money to their members for, I would have to say, expenses during this period, up to $15,000 for individuals, $5,000 a month at very attractive rates with moratoriums and so on. We've now decided to supplement that. That's a total of $100 million made available to the credit unions, which the government will provide to them. The credit unions advance the money and then come to the government for a refund. And then the government and the credit unions together manage the loan portfolio. I can say that last week we took a decision as part of this evolving situation to tell the credit unions that we are giving them another $100 million. And that second $100 million is specifically designed to provide loans to small businesses that have some relationship with credit unions. So in addition to the commercial banking loan facility, which is at $300 million, we have another $100 million specifically for small businesses that's going to be put through the credit union movement.
Are there any more questions, media? Please raise your hand. Minister, we have Clint again.
Nobody else wants to ask?
Okay.
Please proceed, Clint. Clint, can you hear us?
Seems to have lost contact with him.
Okay, we also have Sarah Chandu again.
I'm good.
Good afternoon again, Minister.
Good afternoon.
If I could turn to the fuel grant at the ceremony held by the Works Minister on Friday, he said that the directive from the Finance Ministry right now is just to facilitate maxi taxi owners. Could you speak to this grant for taxi operators at this time?
Finance, the Ministry of Finance is a convenient place for people to throw things at, but that's okay. We have agreed to provide the fuel grant to maxi taxis, and the Prime Minister did say, I heard him myself say, that a facility will be extended to regular taxis as well. We're working on that right now because the number of taxis is much more than maxi taxis. So we're working out, and of course a taxi consumes less fuel. These are all the technical matters that had to be provided to us in finance from Works. But the decision was already announced that a grant for fuel will be given to regular taxi owners.
Thank you, Minister. We have Joel Julian.
Yes.
Joel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Please proceed.
Yeah, good afternoon, Minister. How are you?
And thank you. Joel, could you help me out by reminding me which media house you work for?
Yeah, from Guardian.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I just want to take, at this current time, one of the issues that we are facing is the lack of revenue coming. And I know one of the avenues that the government is looking at trying to fill this gap is, the establishment of the revenue authority. For the past.
All right, but hold on, Joel.
Yeah.
The purpose of this press conference was to deal with story in the Guardian. Just hold on, allow me to finish. A story in the Guardian which gave the wrong impression that persons would not be entitled to receive bonds for VAT refunds unless they were completely up to date with all their tax payments. So I'd like to clear up that issue first, and then I'll be happy to go on to another issue. So is there any clarity you need on that?
I believe that you're very specific and clear on that issue.
So you're very clear. So the Guardian, which published this story, and I'm not blaming you at all because you're not at fault. You're very clear now that there's no requirement or holdback or obstacle with respect to the payment of arrears of VAT refunds by bonds in terms of tax liability. You're now very clear that all that would happen is that if there's a liability on the computer system at the Inland Revenue Department, that amount that is showing up on the system would be deducted from the total value of the bonds, and the persons would get the difference, and then they can query the deduction. You're very clear on that?
Well, I believe I'm clear on that.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay, now what I also meant is that in terms of the Revenue Authority, I can talk about it, but I just wanted to make sure there's no misunderstanding among any of the other members of the media with respect to tax refunds. But I'll talk about the Revenue Authority.
Well, yeah.
I'll talk about the Revenue Authority.
Okay, right. So yes, so the government is looking at the establishment of the Revenue Authority as one of the avenues in the sort of help in terms of our revenue that's coming, because one of the issues that we're facing is a lack of revenue, right? So I just want to, the current situation that is taking place in the parliament, where we do not see the support of the government, the opposition, in terms of the passing of the gaming legislation, and also like the bail legislation. Is there fear from the government that the Revenue Authority will not be able to proceed going forward? Because I know it requires also a special majority.
Well, it's not a fear. It's a recognition of reality. We had debated the Revenue Authority bill in the House last year, and at the time the government said that they would not support it. But time has a way of changing things. So we brought it back in the Senate, and it was supported by all 9 independent senators, obviously by all 15 members of the government, but all 6 opposition MPs voted against it. So that's a signal that when it is debated in the House, they may, I don't want to second guess them, but they may vote against it. And it's very unfortunate because one of the points I made recently in a statement I made about the things the government is doing, such as these VAT arrears, and I want to repeat because, this kind of information sometimes tends to get lost. We have so far printed $449,355,000 in VAT bonds, almost $450 million. By tomorrow, that figure would have passed 500 million, over $500 million in VAT bonds in just a couple of days. I want to make that crystal clear. And these bonds, the Inland Revenue Division is contacting the people by phone and telling them to come for their bonds, $450 million in bonds. But I made the point when I was making a statement about this and other things the government is doing, that almost 1/3 of the labor force is outside of the national insurance system. And they would also be outside of the tax system. Right. So that 1/3 of the labor force, people who are out there earning money, receiving money and so on, are outside of the formal system of registration. That is something we have to deal with, because certainly if some of those people were included within the system, there will be a greater revenue collection. In addition, all of the studies that we have received, all of the information that we have, all of the research that has been done over the last 20 to 30 years shows a huge gap between potential revenue collection and actual revenue collection in the billions of dollars. So that if all of the revenue that we should be collecting was being collected, you might be able to balance the national budget. The estimates vary from $5 billion up to $15 billion. If we were able to get $5 billion, for example, we would have been able to get in additional revenue from better collections, better enforcement, better administration. We would have been able to balance the 2020 budget pre-COVID. Of course, COVID has changed all of that. So I am very, very hopeful. Perhaps I should not be so hopeful, but I am hopeful that the opposition will see sense and will understand that no matter which government is in power, we need to get on with this revenue authority.
Okay, Minister, we still have Clint Chanzak.
Yeah, sure.
Clint?
Yes, hello? Yes.
Yes, Clint.
Hi. Yes, hi. I just wanted to ask, you know, an important part of the reopening strategy will involve some amount of economics. And Minister, given the deficit that you said that we are facing as a result of the COVID situation, are you satisfied that the way that the rate at which we're facing the reopening of the economy is going to help us to try to fix that deficit and fill the deficit, I should say? And secondly, are there any plans to say extend any of the current measures like salary relief grant or any of these other measures at this point?
Well, we have all the measures that we have designed for a 3-month period for the months of April, May, and June, including a part of March as well. If there is need to revisit it and to extend beyond the 3 months, of course, the government will look at that. But at this point in time, our salary review grant, for example, is for the months part of April, part of March, from the 20th of March onward, April, May, into June. If by the end of June, we see that we have need to extend for whatever reason, certainly the government will look at that. We would not just leave it so and say, look, we said 3 months and that's it, 3 months done. Certainly this government is not going to do that. As I said, it's a very dynamic, evolving situation. We look at it every day and we make decisions based on the current information available to us. In terms of the reopening of the economy, that is a matter that is not within my discretion. What I would say is that there's a very delicate balance between business activity and health. And if you look all around the world, the countries that have reopened and opened up all sorts of things, churches, recreation grounds, beaches, that kind of thing, they're having huge spikes in the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We in Trinidad and Tobago have been very, very careful. And as I said in the Parliament on Friday, I don't think there's any other country in the world that can compare to Trinidad and Tobago, especially in the reopening of the economy. The economy was reopened. Substantial parts of the economy have been reopened. And there's no additional cases of the virus. So, and even while essential businesses were running, that's a significant amount of business operations, there were no additional cases of the virus. So you have to be very, very careful. Of course, the longer it takes to completely and fully open the economy, the longer it will take for the economy to recover. Of course, that's obvious. But the last thing you want is our health system to be overwhelmed. Look at the case with the people coming back on the cruise ships. We don't have enough space to accommodate all of them, so they have to come in batches. And that is without any new cases in the country. So that you have to understand this is a very difficult thing to do. You have to be very careful about it. And this is why we have come up with this package of financial support, injecting $6 billion into the economy to soften the impact of the COVID-19 while listening to the health experts as to when and how you should reopen the economy, what should be reopened, what should not be reopened, what kind of social distancing you should have in place, the wearing of face masks and all that sort of thing. But that is not up to me. It is my job as Minister of Finance is to provide the financial support as quickly as possible and make sure it gets to people as fast as possible and gets to the right people as well as quickly as possible. And that's the task I've been given. That's the task I have every single day.
Minister, once again, we have Sarah Chandu from 103 FM.
Sure.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, Minister. Could I ask up until which income year were personal income taxes refunded?
I can't give you those details at this point in time, but I can certainly provide them for you. I don't have all of that information. I know the VAT refunds were within the last couple of months, and I know that the income tax refunds would have been refunds due for the last year that refunds were processed. Remember, the close of the year or the date on which income tax returns are due is the 21st of April, so that, or the 30th of April, it's in April, so that the refunds would have been for the previous year, if one assumes that no refunds had been processed for 2020, because we began to issue these refunds in March. So if you have experience of filing a tax return, you would be aware that tax returns are due in April. But we started to process tax refunds in March. So I would say, I don't want to give you an answer that is incorrect. So I will check that for you, and I'll certainly give you that information.
Minister, are you able to take some more questions?
Sure, for next 10 minutes.
Okay, we have Joel Julian again from Guardian newspaper. Joel, please proceed.
Good afternoon again.
Yes.
We're seeing improvements in terms of the crude prices so far, like the natural gas prices also. So I just wanted to know what effect would it have in terms of the deficit that we have seen so far? Would we expect to see a smaller deficit than what has been so far? And what would that mean in terms of the drawdown of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund?
Well, I'll say two things. I'll say thank God that prices have recovered. That's the first thing I would say. Secondly, you can't look at oil prices or natural gas prices based on a week or even a month. You have to look at it over the medium to long term. So yes, if you look at the price of oil, it's over $30. That's true. But who knows what's going to happen next month, because it's all based on demand and supply. The reason why the price of oil crashed was because global demand for oil crashed. Now economies are reopening and so on, demand has gone back up and production levels had gone down. So the price is going back up. I would say, in terms of the oil price, even though it's over $30 now, it is far too early to make any sort of scientific assessment as to what effect this would have on our deficit for 2020. We are continuing to work with the $30 figure. In terms of natural gas prices, they are still in the $1.80 range, which is what we have used for our projections. So it's too early to answer your question.
Okay, media, are there any more questions? Please use your raise hand tool. Okay, Minister, we have Joel Julian again.
Okay.
Minister, I just want to know, as you said, on a daily basis, we look at the figures in terms of salary relief grants and the various grants. I just want to know if you could give us the latest.
The latest figure I have is the one that was given on Friday in the Parliament, and that would have been up to the end of Thursday, which is 15,333 salary relief grants paid by the Ministry of Finance. Remember, there's also an income support grant paid by the Ministry of Social Development. You have to put the two together. So far, up to Thursday, over 15,000 salary relief grants would have been paid. And that's just for the first month, because we'll be doing the second month and the third month and so on as we go along.
Minister, we now have Nicholas Lachman Singh from TV6.
Sure.
Nicholas, can you hear us?
Okay. Yes, I could. Good day, Minister. Question. We see reports where there are hotels claims to be hotels in Tobago claiming refunds, money release grants from the state. Have we seen anything like that in Trinidad and Tobago, where we have businesses that are non-existent, or shells even, trying to claim some of these disbursements being given by the government?
I don't have any detailed information on that. That has come to my attention this morning, that there was a allegation that there was some unregistered hotels and guest houses who want to access the hotel grant in Tobago. That is, in fact, an urgent question in the Senate in the next hour or so. That's coming up. I don't want to speak too much on that. Tobago is governed by the Tobago House of Assembly, and I would expect that the THA would manage this process properly, equitably, and ensure that there are no unauthorized recipients or hosts or whatever you want to call them would receive any grant. I am confident that that will occur in the vast majority of situations. But I don't want to speak specifically to that hotel matter because it has only appeared in the media this morning. I don't know too much about it. What I know is that we have made available the sum of $50 million, which we are going to give to the THA to manage. And they will use their procedures and use their systems and so on to manage that $50 million. And if more needs to be given to deal with other entities in Tobago, I've already made the statement in the Parliament on Friday that if we need to give more money to other types of entities, the government will seriously consider that as well.
Minister, we now have Clint Shantak again. Clint?
Hi, hello. Yes, I just wanted to go back a little bit to the what you were mentioning earlier, Minister, about the fuel grant and the decision to extend this to taxis in addition to maxi taxis. So, in the context of that, do you think it's fair for some of these any of these associations to be considering raising the prices of their fares to the traveling public, given that some of them they may eventually be benefiting from this measure? Because you may be aware some of them are considering this right now. Like one from Port Street to San Fernando is
Well, I wouldn't want to comment on that. Again, that is a matter for my colleague, the Minister of Works and Transport. And I want to make the point it's not that we're extending the grant to taxis. The Honorable Prime Minister made the statement that it would be for maxis and taxis. We started with maxis. This is being managed by the Ministry of Works and Transport. We at Finance are not going to micromanage that. They have all of the knowledge, the expertise, the data, the systems with respect to the transport sector, and that is something I would leave for my colleague, Senator Sinanan, to deal with.
Are there any more questions? Please use your raise hand tool.
This is another 5 minutes, okay? But go ahead, I'm here. That's it? You're done? Okay.
There are no more questions.
Okay,
well, actually,
before-
Nicholas now put up his hand.
You can, because I want to repeat the $450 million in
Okay, so go ahead.
VAT refunds.
Go ahead, Nicholas, from
What do you
TV6.
Minister, just a quick question. I know this is a lot of monies were given in cash. Why the decision to give? Is it just semantics that money is given in cash, or was it issued by a check first and then they were able to cash these checks?
You're talking specifically about the VAT refunds?
Yes, specifically to the small businesses VAT refunds. I know you mentioned they were given in cash.
No. There's a very good scientific and financial reason for it. We had a certain amount of cash available. You have to remember, the government operates its financial system on what is called a current basis. So it's what money is available in the government's bank account at the central bank. So we calculated what the demands would have been for the months of March, April, and May, and determined how much cash would be available to pay out refunds. And we determined that we could make available $700 million in cash. The VAT bonds, however, are in the billions. The total VAT refunds, sorry, let me correct that. Total VAT refunds are in the billions. We simply do not have sufficient cash to pay out billions and billions of dollars in VAT bonds. VAT bonds are a form of financing. The bonds are due for encashment in 3 years' time, at which time hopefully the economy will have recovered and the government will be in a position to encash those bonds. Not hopefully, the government will have to encash them in 3 years. So we did a mix. We focusing on the need to help the smaller entities, the smaller companies and so on, because you have to remember VAT refunds are to VAT registered companies. So focusing on the need to help small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises, whatever cash we had available to us, we focused on that sector, the small and medium. The larger companies have a greater capacity to handle this situation. I mean, they're under stress as well, but they have a greater capacity. So anything above 500,000 has to be done in a bond because that's in the billions. The ones below are in the hundreds of millions. So that was the cash we had available at that time to deal with this particular measure. I hope, does that clear up everything for you?
Yes, it does. Thank you so
Very much. Okay, all right. Well, thank you all for participating. Thank you for coming and attending this very hastily arranged virtual press conference. And from time to time, we in finance will be doing this if we think the need is there to clarify something. And I just want to repeat as we close that we have processed and bonds are available for collection, totaling $449,355,000 as of 10:30 a.m. this morning. As I said, by tomorrow we'll have crossed $500 million, and I think I need to congratulate the Inland Revenue Division. You know, sometimes they get a lot of flack, but they took a little while with this because of the logistics, the IT involved, and so on. They had to get a computer system working properly, but now they have it running to be able to do $280 million worth of bonds in one day, which is what they did today, is very commendable. So I want to commend them for that. Thank you very much.